Okay, it's live. How's it going, friends from beyond the internet? Oh, I shouldn't talk about the world at large, but things changed about the internet in the United States today.
Uh-oh.
So that's sad. um, so we have everyone here. We've got a pretty cool release to talk about. We just released Azure PowerShell 5.1.1.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Which is our December release, and we have a lot of cool stuff coming in. So I'm actually gonna not do a six minute intro. I had this whole monologue planned, but I scrapped it just to make more room for all of the demos. So first up, we have Maddie. She is going to talk about dynamic completers. And just so you know, we may not do demos for all of these things. I have one demo that covers all of these. So if you guys don't want to do a demo, you don't have to, because I literally can cover the first 6 topics in one demo.
Yeah,
yeah, so Maddie, you're up.
Yeah, I'll skip the demo then, since you're gonna include it in your demo. So basically, I talked about this a little last stand-up, but there are 2 new dynamic completers. So the location completer on any commandlet in Azure RM, which has a location parameter, you can now tab through all possible locations that are valid for that commandlet. So just using tab completion. And also for any parameter with a resource group name or resource group, you can tab through all the resource groups in your current subscription and choose from there.
That's pretty cool. How does it work?
So for location, it's basically doing the same commandlet as get Azure RM resource provider, and it gets all the information from there, figures out which resource type the commandlet is using, and gets all of the valid locations for that resource type. And then for resource group completer, it does basically get Azure RM resource group and pulls all your resource groups that are available for your current subscription.
So we might add that it's using caching, so this doesn't take forever.
So it'll take maybe 1 to 2 seconds the first time, probably at worst, and then it'll be instantaneous from then on.
Yeah.
How does the cache get invalidated then, or changed?
When you end the session, the cache goes away.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So it is important to note that it's not a closed set. It's like a suggestion set. So you can, if you create a resource group in that session and you tap through and don't see it, you can still provide it, and it's not going to throw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Maddie.
Hey,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Who is that person on camera right?
Oh, I don't know. I forgot. Yeah, I completely dropped the ball on that.
What?
Who is that?
Oh, am I supposed to? Oh, I'm Yanni.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I started here this week. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know what else to say. So,
How much have you accomplished in 3 days?
Learning things and asking lots of questions. So, negative impact on everyone. Sorry.
Well, but an event, it's the investment, right? It's a negative impact, but you're gonna, you got investment.
He's going to be helping us deliver the awesome things faster.
Yeah, we're expecting Bitcoin level returns though. Like we want 16,000% within the next month.
Okay. Keep that in mind.
It took a year for the 13,000%. So
yeah, I know. I'm messing with him. Okay, cool. Thank you, Maddie. I think the one theme to note here is that these first few things that we're talking about are all product-wide improvements. So whether we're talking about, compute or networking, we have improvements that are taking place across the entire product that should make development or scripting in Azure PowerShell easier. So next up is an improvement that's an extension of an improvement we talked about last week called As Job, and Mark is going to talk about that / maybe give us a demo.
yes, I think I will actually give a demo. All right. So here I go with the demo. So what we did in this last release is we added support for AsJob as a general piece of functionality, and then we implemented it for a bunch of the compute commandlets. So I'm going to show you just some simple things that you can do with AsJob using compute. So right now I have some VMs that I want to take a look at. So let's actually just look at some VMs in the current subscription. I'm actually just going to look at one. And you can see how fast my lovely network connection is. So basically this is, and we can see from the power state of this VM over here that it's running. So I want to stop that VM. So I can run stop Azure RM VM. And because stopping an Azure RM VM takes an inordinate amount of time, and I have other PowerShell stuff to do, I'm going to pass in AsJob as a parameter. I want it to stay provisioned probably, because I might want to start it at some point in the future. And then the other thing, actually, I think I'll show it to you this way. So I can just do this. And what will happen is once it runs that commandlet and gets through to stop Azure MVM, trust me, it's not actually going to block. Even though it looks like that's what it's doing right now, it's not. It's just taking a long time doing the first part of that commandlet. And there we go. We have a thing. We can see that we have the job running. So if I do a wait job over this job, so this is just a PowerShell job. So all of the job commandlets are usable with this return value. So I can wait on the job. I can stop the job. I can check on the job status, and I can receive any data that's been written to the job. So if I do wait job, I can capture the job, or I can give block for user interaction. Okay, so it's telling me that that job is blocked for user interaction. So what I want to do, if I do get job over that job, it will tell me that it is blocked. And so to unblock it, I have to run receive job. And it says, oh yeah, and I have to tell it which one. Sorry, right in the middle of a demo. So receive job 2. And there we go. I just said, yes, go ahead and go. And if I go get the job again, I can see that it's unblocked and it's running. And then basically I can wait on the job, and then when it's done, I can receive the job to get the stuff at the end. Now, in order, this is one of the things with jobs. So as with any PowerShell commandlet, a should continue prompt could come up at some point during execution because of things that happen, or because of environmental properties that we don't know until later on in the commandlet. So if I want to avoid having to get a job blocked, I can just pass the -force parameter, and then it would just dismiss that prompt and continue going without me having to interact with it. But if I happen to make a mistake and not do that, there still is this way to unblock myself. So this was added to a whole bunch of the Azure RM commandlets for compute. And in the near future, we should be adding it to a whole other set of core commandlets. And over the next several months, any new commandlets that come out will automatically have this functionality. And we'll be retrofitting the existing commandlets. So within a short period of time, you shouldn't have any Azure commandlets taking up your screen time unless you really, really want to. So
yeah, cool.
That's it.
And so one thing that we do want to mention, because it is a community stand-up, is kind of behind the scenes what we're thinking as well. And part of what Mark had done here is kind of provide this functionality as a drop-in for the existing for the rest of our partners. So even places where we haven't specifically gone in and made this change, our partner teams can very easily go in and drop in this change to get this AsJob functionality without having to make any type of overhaul on what they're actually doing.
Yeah, and we're preemptively making that change, or I'm going to say proactively making that change for the commandlets that people use the most. So you should expect to see over the next month or two, commandlets that you use a lot should just automatically have this functionality.
Yeah, cool. Okay, next up is Cormac. He's going to talk about two things. I don't think these have demos, but I want all of the details down to the exact percentages in decreased size. But we've made first update module improvements. What does that mean for the users?
Last stand-up we talked a little bit about the changes we were making so that versions inside the Azure RM rollup module, the versions of modules that is, aren't coupled together. So now we don't have to, or previously I should say, you had to have a specific version of profile to use a specific version of, let's say, compute or SQL or network. But after last release, last being November, we did some work to allow backward compatibility. So now you can have compute version A and use profile version A, B, C, D, as long as A is the minimum, and then B, C, D, E, all of that come afterwards. So you're not tied to a specific version of profile anymore. It's now just a floor dependency. And so what that allows us to do is ship modules at a more frequent pace. Now that we don't have to do this large roll-up module and release every single module every time, we can just individually release modules that need or have updates, need to update, have updates, and we can push those to the gallery. And then when we decide to do our Azure RM roll-up release, those will just get picked up, and those are the modules that will get packaged with Azure RM rather than everything, regardless of if something changed in the module or not. And so that the one thing we want to talk about is now how to get these new bits quicker. And the commandlet we want to highlight from the PowerShell get module is the module update module, or sorry, the commandlet update module. And what that allows you to do is specify a module that you have installed on your machine, and it's going to go to the gallery and get the latest version for that module and install it side by side on your machine with the modules that you have already on your machine. So what we suggest is to have Azure RM installed on your machine, so you have everything, you have all the bits, and then when the new release comes around, you're just going to do update module dash name Azure RM, and it's going to go to the gallery and install all the new bits in Azure RM rather than all of the existing bits that you might have on your machine. So usually that would take us about 2 to 2.5 minutes to install everything, and now for the last 2 releases when we've done these individual packages that we've released, it takes about a minute or so. So it's cutting the time down in half. And with this work, we also did some remodeling with the packages that we ship. So now all the packages that are common to everybody are located in profile, and now not every module needs those packages, because if you load up a module, you need profile first, so those assemblies will get loaded. So we are not shipping all of the assemblies like we used to, so the package size has decreased by to about a third of the original size. So you'll see that on your machines compared to before. Same goes with the MSI if you install from WebPI or the GitHub repository. Yeah, and so that's stuff you'll see in the future. You'll see more and more individual modules being released out of band with Azure RM. We're going to continue to release Azure RM, but the individual modules like compute, SQL Network, etc., are going to be releasing at a faster pace on their own individually, and you'll have to go in and do update module Azure RM.compute to get those specific bits before we release them on our monthly or bi-weekly cadence with the Azure RM rollup module.
Yeah, cool. Anyone have any questions there that they want to lead the witness with? With which they would like to lead the witness? Nope. Okay, cool. I'm going to skip over me for a sec so I can do one huge demo for everyone. One of the other big things that we talked about was on the way is kind of targeted improvements to scenarios. And we shipped a new parameter set to new Azure RM VM that's kind of a targeted scenario. So Sergey, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I can show.
Cool.
I can show demo. This one is from pull request, not the one that we ship, that we probably will ship later, slightly updated version. So it is the same. It's a share, but
it should be at the top.
Screen share.
Yeah. There you go.
So it is slightly improved version of what I will show. So that one improvement is a little bit better progress bar. So Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, if you see now, it actually has this spinner, and it's actually much
cool.
better and precise progress bar now, like in the percentage complete. So it's also show like what the tasks currently, what is it doing right now,
Yeah.
and yeah.
But
Very
all of
cool.
you are going to run this with AsJob, so you're
Yes,
so
sure.
you're not going to see this. But in case you do want to take up your time looking at this, you can actually see what's happening, and it's kind of interesting to see all the stuff that happens when you're creating a VM.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last step, of course, like creating virtual machine is taking
The most amount of time.
we don't hear him.
Yeah, very cool.
That's it for me for now. Yeah,
Awesome.
and so one of the good thing about it is that all of these changes like progress bar and all of this creating dependent resources, they will be in new commands like VMSS, web app, and so on, exactly the same. So we just like kind of use the same library, and that actually will use for all new simple parameter sets.
Cool.
That's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a key thing that we.
Switch it off.
Are you muted?
No.
Go ahead and mute, and I will turn mine on.
So it's kind of a key thing that Sergey did this time, is that he added a bunch of infrastructure to make it easier for us to add these to create these simplified commandlets. So you will in quick order see a bunch more of these things, and you'll see them at accelerated pace. So Sergey has done a great job doing that for us.
Strategy pattern, which is not all the craze, but some craze right now.
It's all the craze from 2005.
Yeah. I feel like it's gotten to like a resurgence almost. I've seen a bunch of blog posts about you should use the strategy pattern. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Everyone should use the strategy pattern. It's the first pattern you learn.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Sergey. I'll show a little bit more of that as well in my demo. Havsep, you're up next. Havsep has been working on something similar scenario for VMSS. And so he's just going to talk about that. And that's going to be going out as a preview sometime in the next week or so.
Yeah, I don't have the demo to show, but I can tell that the VMSS is following the same pattern as VM commandlets. So we have just two required parameters right now, which is the VMSS name, actual name, and credentials for the virtual machine. And that's it. So just providing those two parameters, it will create all the infrastructure. It will create load balancer. It will create all the backend pool and front-end IP addresses with default values, which are the common scenario that people use. And it will nicely show the progress, as Sergey showed in his demo. And so users will not have to find a lot of help and samples to just provision a VMSS. If they want to have a quick start, they just run one commandlet, it creates entire infrastructure, and they are up and running and ready to go. And I believe it will be available in the nearest preview that we will ship.
Correct.
So yeah, that's from my side.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Havsep.
So when somebody creates a VMSS using just the name and the admin password, is it creating what is Windows Server 2016? Is that the VM image we use by default? So it's the same as for
same as virtual machine. So basically, the difference between virtual machine and virtual machine scale set is just the instance count that the people want to provide and say how many instances of that VM they want to create. And that should be the only difference.
And we also added some nice VMSS updates last time, which will be nice for this. Like scaling up, you can do a single command where you pass in just the scale set name and the resource group, and then just like the scale parameters, and then that scales it up. And you can even do that as a job, and have it happen in the background. So
nice. Very good. Thank you, Havsep, for describing those changes. I think Mark was saying earlier, you'll see more of this coming, more of these kind of convenient commandlets or simplified commandlets coming online, especially because some of the groundwork that Sergey had already laid for the VM create scenario. And VMSS was just kind of a logical extension of what we had already done. So we wanted to try that out and get a preview out to people so they can try it and let us know what they think.
Do you want to talk about our intended schedule for previews, or should we save that for a later one?
Do we want to talk about the intended schedule? Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea is that starting in January, late January, we should be delivering at least one preview at twice a month, so every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So right now we're getting prepared to sprint really fast, and Sergey has done a lot of work to make that possible. So yeah, we should start sprinting really fast in the new year and getting the stuff out much more quickly.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a global thing too. Our team is driving these types of improvements and this effort, but our partner teams can do the same thing. So we've already had some partner teams ask us to, like, how can they plug into the work that we've done? How can they ship previews faster and things like that? So there might be more than one preview every 2 weeks, depending on how many teams we have. All kind of trying to get customer feedback and trying to experiment with the types of changes they want to make to their product. Cool. One other thing, Azure, well, I keep on calling it Azure AKS, but it's Azure Container Service, spelled with a C, but initialized with a K. It makes sense. Don't worry about it. So that is in preview right now, and it went out first on Azure CLI, but we've had a lot of demand for that type of functionality in Azure PowerShell. So we also have one of our other team members building functionality for AKS. That should also go out in preview later this month, sometime maybe over the next week or two. And it's got almost complete parity with the functionality that you'll see in the CLI. And that's another thing where we're exploring ways that we can make that easier. We have a lot of customers who maybe want to copy secrets from Key Vault into their Kubernetes cluster and things like that. So we've got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike. And feel free to keep an eye out for the VMSS preview and the AKS preview. So that comes to me. I think I'm last here, right? Oh, Mark, did you want to talk about web app?
Yeah, the web app preview will be coming.
Yes.
We should put it out about the same time as VMSS, so we're looking at very soon.
Mid next week, maybe?
Yeah, probably early to mid next week. Yeah.
Cool. And again, like we said before, that goes along the same lines, and we're just trying to make the scenarios easier. So a lot of customers would like to, they have a local repository, like a local Git repository, and they'd like to just create a web app and get that code up in the web app all in one step. And so we've kind of created some tailored commandlets to help you do that. So I'll do my quick demo just so that we can make sure to get the dynamic completers as a demo. And now I find myself also not finding the button for sharing. Here we go. You guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Cool. So look, I can type things. So first up, I actually presented this to some of my higher ups last week, and there were so many oohs and ahs that I decided I'd show a similar demo, and it's almost just one line of code. But the first thing to show is that I'm on Windows. Sorry, how do I prove that? Look, Windows. Can you guys see that? Windows. Yes. I'm on Windows. Look, proof. But I am actually running in a Linux Docker container. So this is Azure PowerShell. Sorry, this is PowerShell 6 RC1, I believe, running in a Docker container. I pulled this from our Docker Hub, so you can actually grab. Well, if you just go to Azure SDK / Azure PowerShell Azure-PowerShell-core. there's a latest tag in there that gets updated every time we have a release. And you can try this image today with the Azure PowerShell 5.1.1. So there are two things right there, running in a Docker container and netcore. The other thing I wanted to show is the dynamic completers that Maddie was talking about. So if I do resource group name and tab, we'll see right there I get a completion list. It's a little bit more Unixy style completion list, where instead of tabbing through on the line, it's tabbing through more of the way a Unix user might be used to this. I'm actually not sure if this is changing at all, but if I do start filling it out,
I believe you can actually control this in PowerShell 6, right? You can whether you're using Linux, whether you're using sort of like a Linuxy kind of flavor or using a more of a PowerShelly kind of flavor. So actually on Windows, this would be a tab completer, just like tab completers you used to.
I actually did not know that. Can I set it to be more like Windows while on Unix?
I believe you can, but I don't recall the command off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't recall either. But there you have it. That's kind of what I wanted to show, is you get that tab completion, and it was pretty quick there. The other thing is location completers. This is going to change just a little bit. And I wish I had known that you could switch the way the tab style gets completed. But we had Jeffrey Snover himself suggest that we switch from double quotes to single quotes for our completion here in location. So that will be happening in the next release. The other comment to make here is that these are dynamic. I think Maddie mentioned this earlier, but if I were working against Azure Stack, my completion list for location would be different. The last thing that
if you switch context from Azure to Azure Stack, it will dynamically change.
Yeah. The last thing that Cormac mentioned is that this is just a suggested list. So if I want to use this for tab completion, it works. However, I don't have to. So if I want to put my VM in a specific resource group, I guess I'll just call it group, and then give it a name, give some numbers, and then do as job. It still works, right? It's just a suggested list. Hey, you might want to use one of these existing groups, but if you don't, you can pass a name and get one created. And then in this case, same as we showed on Windows, I can do a username and password here. And like Mark showed for as job, we get the as job. So this is the cool stuff that I wanted to show. Not only do we have the new dynamic completers, the as job, we also have these working in PowerShell 6 and even working in a Unix or Mac environment. So that's kind of my demo there. And just like Mark showed before, we can get job. That's going to take a little while, so I'm going to end my demo right there. Cool. I feel like I get the slow clap all the time. That was a fast clap. Normally I get the slow clap.
That was a non-sarcastic clap. Yes.
Damn it. Wait. Are you telling me that a slow clap isn't better than a regular clap? No.
Oh, yes, a slow clap is way better than a regular clap.
Awesome. So we had a few things that we wanted to talk about kind of on our way out the door. And I will literally be out the door when this is over because I have to be somewhere. But the first thing is we're moving to a 2-week release cadence. Does anyone want to talk about that, or should I? Okay, I will. Starting January 26th, 2018. That's one day before my birthday, by the way. Great day. We are moving to a 2-week release cadence, kind of like Cormac talked about earlier. We're making it easy to ship any module at any time, and we'll be taking changes into Azure RM every 2 weeks. That will also align with Azure Cloud Shell, which is the shell that you can get in the portal, which we've showed before, I think, and that will also align with Azure CLI. So every 2 weeks, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, and Cloud Shell will all ship at the same time. And that exact day of the week is still to be determined, but we will be shipping at more kind of an increased cadence every 2 weeks.
And we should emphasize that even though we're allowing people to release things when they're ready, and we're releasing at a faster pace, this doesn't impact our commitment about breaking changes, which
Correct.
is as long as you're staying with the stable modules in Azure RM, as long as you stay with the stable modules, you will not get breaking changes except at maximum twice a year. We will let you know when those breaking change releases happen far in advance, and you will get notification of breaking changes way before they occur, and there will be a migration guide. So all that stuff still applies. It's just
Correct.
that the new stuff that they implement in Azure, you will be able to access through PowerShell much more quickly, rather than having to wait.
Yep.
And in Cloud Shell, and have documentation.
Yes, that too. Documentation is important. That's another thing that you'll see tomorrow when we ship in Cloud Shell. Our documentation changes will go out as well, because we have new improvements for all of these things that we showed to the documentation. The other thing we talked a little bit about was previews or experiments or pre-releases, whatever you want to call them. The PowerShell gallery is soon to support, or is it already supporting pre-releases?
It supports it now.
Supports it now. You do have to update your PowerShell get. So you would have to do update module PowerShell get, correct?
Correct.
Actually, well, you might be able to do that, but if you just have the version that came with your machine, then you're going to have to do install module PowerShell get from the gallery. Because when you do update module,
dash
it
force.
doesn't recognize. Yes.
Correct.
Update module doesn't recognize sometimes that it's from the gallery.
That it's okay because it was local and it's
Yeah, so if you just have the version that shipped with Windows, then you will have to do install module -force. If you have previously installed PowerShell get from the gallery, then you'll be able to do update module, and that'll work.
Yeah, okay, cool. But what that means is that, like we said, as we start to ship experimental and preview models across the entire product, you will start to be able to do update module or install module -allow pre-release. So you can find those in the gallery just like you normally would. And if a team announces it or something and says, hey, try out our pre-release module, then they'll give you instructions, but you'll be able to do something like install module azurem.compute -allow pre-release. And this is a good way where, maybe the compute team wants to do breaking changes more often, or they want to show you functionality more often. Well, instead of actually breaking Azure RM, they'll just ship a preview module that will have the functionality that they want to showcase to all of you and maybe get feedback on. We were also going to talk briefly about the fact that at some point, I think 2 months ago, we enable Azure RM autosave, Azure RM context autosave, correct?
Yep.
Today, it is off by default, and we just want to let everyone know that because of the kind of feedback we've gotten about it, we will be moving that to on by default. So context autosave will be on by default at some point in the future. I think we're thinking March timeframe, May timeframe. I mean, right?
I know. I think we're thinking earlier than that.
March or something like that. February or March.
It'll probably be one of the early releases, February, Marchish.
Yeah, and that can always be turned off with disable Azure RM context autosave.
Yeah, you'll still be able to enable disable, but it'll just be on by default.
But we just find more and more users expecting that it be persisted by default. So we just kind of wanted to make that the default behavior in Azure PowerShell as well. The other thing that we are exploring right now is there's one of our employees at Microsoft in London, his name's Stuart Leaks, has a product called Posh-Hump Completion. You can look it up on both the gallery and on GitHub. And we know, and we're looking at other ways to address this as well, but we know that the tab completion for Azure RM is not the greatest, because you have to type get-Azure RM and then a few more letters before the tab completion is even remotely helpful. He actually built a product, which he calls Posh-Hump Completion, which allows you to just use the uppercase, the humps in, if you will, in the Pascal casing of the word to tab complete. So you could do something like GARVM, which would complete to get Azure RM VM. So we're thinking about either adding that to our docs or also recommending it to you. We're also talking to the PowerShell team to see if that's something that they've looked into. But if you've ever found yourself having issues with that, are we officially endorsing it? We just think it's really cool, and you might want to check it out. It's called Posh-Hump Completion. And then lastly, Mark, you can talk about this. How is the MSI changing?
So we now have we're now looking at a we've started, well, we have a prototype of an installer that does side-by-side installs with the stuff in the gallery. So basically, the installation looks like stuff that you installed from the gallery. It interacts well with the stuff you installed from the gallery. You can update it from the gallery, and you can uninstall, and it will just uninstall, you know, the stuff that you haven't that was part of the installer. So this would get rid of the current thing with the install where we're updating the PS module path and all of that other nastiness, and just make installing from the MSI just an offline way to do the same thing that you would do if you were getting the modules from the gallery using install module. So look for that early next year. We're right now we're doing a bunch of validation over all the scenarios with this. One thing is that it means that that the MSI will require PowerShell 5 or greater. So we're at some point next year, probably May, we will be dropping support for PowerShell 4 and PowerShell 3. Yep. But the MSI, when we release this, will only work with PowerShell 5 or greater. And if you want to do PowerShell 3 or 4, you'll have to, you know, install the PowerShell gallery update for those, and then use the gallery to get the new stuff. So
cool.
FYI, we're making things better for you, but we're also taking something away.
Yeah.
You know.
It's again, it's kind of like Yanni, right? It's a little bit of debt so that we can tying it all together. Makes sense. Okay, I think that's it. That's all I have in my little listy thing that I've been keying off of. Is there anything else besides send feedback all the time? Send feedback. Send us feedback. Interact with us on GitHub. Go to the docs and either click edit and make edits if you think they need to be better, or go to GitHub and file issues against them. Anything like that, please do. But is there anything other than that we need to talk about before we mosey on out?
I think that's it.
Cool. Thank you a lot, everyone.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy all the things.
Yes.
Until next time.